To quote a favorite line from one of my favorite movies, the 1984 Transformers movie, when Starscream looks down at Megatron as he throws him out of Astrotrain and says, "Oh, how it pains me to do this." And that's kind of how I feel right now is we have to talk about Texas Longhorns recruiting because, listen, over the past week since their big official visit weekend, Texas has really been rolling on the recruiting trail. At one point, they had moved up to number 25 on the recruiting rankings, now falling to 28, just below Alabama and other teams like that. But Texas is hot and probably one of the hotter teams on the recruiting trail as it sits, and something we got to talk about. But before we do that, go ahead, hit that like and hit the subscribe button. Jump down in the comments below and let me know what y'all's thoughts are around the Texas Longhorns recruiting in the 2024 cycle. So the jokes have been swirling around Texas Longhorns recruiting because, well, you've got the Texas Techs above them, and it just kind of this joke that Texas isn't able to recruit very well in their own state. And kind of like Oklahoma, they're just having a slow start to the recruiting cycle. And sometimes that's better for you than how Texas Tech started out red hot towards the top of the class because you don't have as many decommitments, right? Kids are a little bit more firm in their commitments once they commit to you later in the cycle, so you don't have as high of a turnover. That's what you're starting to see with Steve Sarkisian and the Texas Longhorns. And as they had a really good 2023 and a good 2022, you're starting to see them really continue that trend here in 2024. And I have been really impressed with what Steve Sarkisian has been able to do at Texas since his time there on the recruiting trail. Because when you look at what has really pained the Texas Longhorns over the past couple of years and why they haven't been as successful on the football field is go look at their classes. They weren't prioritizing the offensive line and the edge rusher position. Well, last cycle and the cycle before that, they definitely made sure to address the offensive line, but in 2023, they addressed the edge position not by only getting a Colton Vasek, a four-star defensive end, but they also ended up getting Tahu Sidley Akana from the University of Oklahoma in a late cycle win, and one that kind of stung for Oklahoma fans few and far around. So the Texas Longhorns are addressing the needs. They continue to address those needs, but as they moved up in the recruiting rankings this weekend, not landing 1, 2, 3, but they landed multiple recruits. And we got to talk about it. And the first one we got to talk about is the number 2 overall running back in this class from IMG Academy, and Jarek Gibson at 5'10", 200 pounds. Jarek Gibson at one point was a 5-star in this class and was believed to be the best running back in this class. Lost that title to Taylor Tatum, who right now looks like he's in a battle with Oklahoma and USC for that commitment. But Jarek Gibson is going to kind of help the Texas Longhorns continue to fill a hole where you lost Roshan Johnson and Bijan Robinson. Bijan Robinson, probably one of the better gems that Texas has had in a long, long time, and I believe will end up having a great NFL career. But Jarek Gibson's going to be able to come in right behind Cedric Baxter, and he's going to be able to provide some much-needed depth at the running back position. And Andrew Ivins with 247 Sports, if you guys that watch my show know I like 247 Sports on their evaluation of players, kind of evaluates him a little bit more like Sony Michel. And if you're familiar with him, he was a part of the Georgia Bulldogs. I believe it was in 2018 when the Georgia Bulldogs beat my Oklahoma Sooners in the Rose Bowl. So yeah, y'all Texas Longhorn fans can enjoy me suffering in my misery still on that one. But one of the things that you notice with Jarek Gibson is kind of just his speed. And I'm not going to say he's just like, he's going to blow you away with it because his 100 meter is 11:33, but I believe he's going to end up being a big time power back at 200 pounds. Puts on just a little bit more weight. This is a guy that's going to be able to come in maybe right behind Cedric Baxter, or maybe even in some certain scenarios, matchup scenarios, could be running back number 1 for the Texas Longhorns. But He is a multi-sport athlete as he ran track in high school, transferred to IMG Academy for his junior season, and was running back one there. As a sophomore, he played for Jonesboro, Georgia. So if you're the Texas Longhorns, you're extending your roots into the East Coast, which is important, right? Because as you're going into the SEC, you really need to get into the deep South and be able to submit your roots there. So you get a guy like Jerry Gibson, and you start to get this Texas brand out there, if that makes sense. So a guy that has been able to perform well for IMG Academy and perform well in high school at Georgia, ran a 4.5 40-yard dash. Jarrett Gibson is going to be a great addition to the Texas Longhorns. But the next one that the Texas Longhorns got over the weekend was Jordan Johnson-Rubel, a 4-star safety at 5'10" and 180 pounds. And the Texas Longhorns beat out quite a few players for Jordan Johnson-Rubel's services, as he gave everybody in all Power 5 conferences at one point a look, but then ultimately had it narrowed down with at least one team in every Power 5 conference in his recruitment. You were going up against the Michigans, the Ohio States. You were going up against an in-state rival in TCU, who just was at the national championship, and then you had to go up against Alabama. So what's the trend here, right? Well, just as Jarrett Gibson, where you're going up against Miami and again, Georgia, some of the other elite programs, you're going up against the elite of the elite, and that's important to be able to win those when you go into the SEC, because it's going to establish you as a football program. But Jordan Johnson-Rubel is another guy at IMG Academy. One thing I'm liking here about Texas is they're really establishing themselves right now in IMG Academy, landing these guys, and ultimately that's going to pay off in the future. But Jordan Johnson-Rubel is a versatile player that maybe could play safety. Well, he is playing safety, but maybe could play a little bit of corner. And in 2021, had 60 tackles, 1 tackles for loss, and 6 pass breakups. So when you watch his film, which I don't have up for you guys today, you notice that Jordan Johnson-Rubel is not afraid to get up there and fight with those receivers for the ball and try to come down with it, which is important, especially still being in the Big 12 right now, where people like to sling the ball. Now, I get it. When Jordan Johnson-Rubel comes in, you'll be going to the SEC, but the SEC has been passing the ball around a little bit more. They've produced a couple Heisman winners, so this will be important for the Longhorns to help stabilize that secondary and that defense. But additionally, they got another big pickup, and this is the second to last. Well, I'd say the third to last one, because we got 2 more we got to talk about. But Daniel Cruz, the 6'3.5", 295-pound inside offensive lineman that you ultimately won from Oklahoma, Texas A&M, and Ohio State. Now, I'm going to be honest, Oklahoma didn't really think they had a chance with Daniel Cruz, but Ohio State was the team that I thought you had to watch out for, as I thought they might land Daniel Cruz's services. Texas gets him on campus. Of course, we know about the NIL deal and the NIL opportunities that Texas has for these offensive linemen, being able to make, I think, what is it, $50,000 or $60,000 a year to be able to play at the University of Texas as an offensive lineman. That's got to be intriguing, because, hey, you don't have to live on ramen noodle budgets. You can go get you some Cane's or Chick-fil-A and splurge a little bit here and there. But Daniel Cruz is an elite inside offensive lineman, and this is a position that I think is going to be hard for a lot of teams to get a couple good players at this year. And I think this was a deeper class, but you kind of see them just going every which way to every team. You don't see a lot of teams picking up multiples of the top interior offensive linemen. Now, I expect Texas is going to be in the running for probably a Brandon Baker and maybe even a Jordan Seaton as the year continues to go on. So we'll have to see what Texas continues to do on the offensive line, but just picking up what they did in 2022 and 2023, building in the trenches. Daniel Cruz, great addition. Speaking of building in the trenches, you get a commitment from Alex January, the 3-star defensive lineman at 6'4", 325 pounds, who, listen, I wanted this kid to be a Sooner because, well, he's big and he can play in nose tackle position. The senior out of Duncanville, Texas, teammates with the likes of Colin Simmons, the 5-star edge rusher that Texas Longhorns fans absolutely want to be able to grab, ends up committing to the Longhorns. You win him over LSU, Florida State, and others. This was actually a really big pickup. It's important to note that his dad, Mike January, played linebacker at the University of Texas in the mid-'80s. So kind of living up to his dad's legacy there. Big win for Texas, right? Again, building in the trenches, especially as you go into the SEC, you're going to need big defensive linemen like this. Steve Sarkisian knows that, a guy that was coaching at Alabama. He knows what to look for when you're looking at offensive linemen and defensive linemen for what you need to be able to compete at the highest level in the SEC. But last but certainly not least, a guy that we're going to talk about today, and I think probably one of the bigger pickups that you guys got, was a 4-star wide receiver, Parker Livingston, out of 6'3", 185 pounds, out of Lovejoy High School in Lucas, Texas. Here's why this is big. Well, you just got Anthony Hill last cycle, the 5-star linebacker. And might be looking to add maybe another linebacker in this class. Well, Parker Livingston is teammates with the likes of, we'll get to him here in a second because I'm totally blanking on his name, Peyton Pierce. That's who we're looking for, Peyton Pierce. If the Texas Longhorns are able to get Parker Livingston to do some inside recruiting and get Peyton Pierce to the University of Texas, a linebacker who I think honestly has 5-star talent, not sure why he's rated as low as he is, but Peyton Pierce is just a dog, big-time linebacker, somebody that I want to end up in the class for Oklahoma, but it's going to be hard to flip from Jim Knowles and the Ohio State Buckeyes. But Parker Livingston is going to be able to add some depth at the wide receiver position, especially as maybe Xavier Robinson and some of those guys are looking to exit and go out the door. Parker Livingston was a guy that had a little over 35 offers, competed in baseball, track and field, so definitely another multi-sport athlete. And in his career, had 109 receptions for 2,078 yards and 33 receiving touchdowns. So Parker Livingston was definitely a major addition to the Texas Longhorns roster, and somebody that I think either Arch Manning, Malik Murphy, who you guys know, if you guys have watched my show, I think is the best quarterback in that quarterback room for Texas at this moment. But Malik Murphy or the 2025 recruit, I believe his name's KJ Lacey. Guys can correct me if I'm wrong on that. This is going to be a big weapon for any of those guys, whoever the starter at the University of Texas is going to be. And honestly, you go in there and you win an in-state prospect. And that's something that I want to see Texas do a little more, I think, to be able to take that next step to win a college football national championship, right? They need to be able to win the guys in their state, well, or at least the top prospects in their state, their top guys, to be able to compete at that level. I know Texas is rich with talent, but I want to see them win a little bit more of that top talent. Try to lock down the state. I want Texas to be back so that with this Red River showdown isn't a 49-0 or I can't remember what the score was the year that, Oklahoma actually got, I think it was like a 30-point victory, but I don't want to see those games anymore. I want to see the close bloodbath battles between the Texas Longhorns and the Oklahoma Sooners. I think it makes football better. It makes this rivalry better. It makes both teams better when you look at the college football playoff landscape and, both of those teams potentially getting in. And I believe a lot of you Texas fans, unfortunately, might agree with me on that one. It might be an area where we got to agree together. But guys, I want to hear from you. Go ahead and jump down in the comments below and let me know what y'all's thoughts are about the recent commitments of the University of Texas and what they have been able to land, because quite frankly, it's been impressive. And it seems like the University of Texas is definitely trending on the right track to try to put themselves in a position to win a college football playoff national championship.